What's up, y'all? Thanks for coming back for another week. So in this week's episode, I wanted to talk fertilizer. Now in particular this week, I wanted to talk about the ProPEAT 1704 fertilizer. Now this is my first run-in with it. I have never used it before, and I ended up ordering 2 bags. Now, why the ProPEAT fertilizer as compared to the Carbon Earth products that I used all last year? To simply put it, they were out of stock. I went through Yard Mastery, everything that I needed was out of stock. They did have some smaller bags, but with my size yard, I needed the big bags. So they were out of stock. I was waiting on some ammonium sulfate to show up from Amazon. Wasn't supposed to be here for another few days, which actually they end up showing up about the same time that my first bag of the ProPEAT showed up. So I'm going to try to rotate this ProPEAT into the plan this year just to give me a little bit more nitrogen for the year because of the rate that I'm applying the ammonium sulfate. I'm not going to hit that 3 pounds per year, so I need something to give me a little extra oomph. So looking at the analysis of this ProPEAT, this is a 1704, and it says on the bag that this is derived from a ammonium sulfate, which works good for me because I was spraying ammonium sulfate, so it kind of helps me stay with that kind of ammonium sulfate game plan. So I haven't opened this bag up yet. I don't know how it's going to compare to the Carbon Earth products. I've seen some people compare it to the XGRN 818. Looking at the numbers though, I would almost think that this 1704 would compete more with like the Carbon Earth, the Carbon X. That is a 2404. Just from a numbers game. Now as far as how maybe the Pro size or something like that, maybe it will look a lot more like the XGRN. I won't know until I actually crack this bag open. So before I do any of that though, I've got a jungle behind me, so I've really got to get everything mowed down before I actually get any of this down. Now with that, and I will add this, so if the two of you that have actually seen my videos, I am trying to keep my potassium and my nitrogen on the same levels, level ratios of like a 1-to-1. So if I put down half pound of nitrogen, I want a half pound of potassium. Now with this being a 1704, I'm not getting that. So my plan is I'm going to apply this at 3 pounds per thousand, which would give me 17 times 3 okay, 0.51 pounds of nitrogen. And I only get just over 1/10 of a pound of potassium. So I'm thinking that I may then come back through with some of my potassium nitrate. I could apply it at a rate of about 0.8 pounds per thousand, and that would get me pretty much right up to that half pound of potassium overall between the ProPEAT and the potassium nitrate. So that might work out pretty well. And with that spray, I'm thinking because it is getting warm out, it's been hitting high 70s, low 80s, and it's getting about 60 overnight. That is prime time for fungus time. So I've got some propiconazole that I could probably put in that tank mix with it and do a preventative rate to try to keep some of that dollar spot out of the yard this year. I've got it every year, so I need to try to get more of a preventative game plan together, so might be a good time to do it. So I've got a bunch of grass to mow, and it's like 90% chance of rain today, so I got to get cracking. So we'll see how far I get. Maybe I'll be able to get everything mowed, and then I can get the fertilizer down. Maybe I'll get half of it mowed. We'll see how the weather permits, and then I might be on a rain delay for a few days to finish up this video. So let's get cracking. for the sake of the video, try to get things done since it's supposed to rain earlier, a little bit later on today. I got the backyard mowed, as you just saw. I'm going to use the fertilizer in the backyard for the part of this video. So I need 6 pounds of the ProPEAT 1704 to go into the backyard so I can apply at a rate of 3 pounds per 1,000 square feet. I'm going to get that down on the backyard. Looking at this ProPEAT 1704, I now see why they compare this to XGRN, because the prill size and everything, this looks a lot like XGRN, except this is brown instead of more of a black color. Doesn't have no smell to it or anything that I can tell. But so that means this is going to spread out really quick like the XGRN does. So I am going to make sure that my spreader is set pretty low, because last time I spread the XGRN on the front yard, I meant to apply it at a rate of 1/4 pound per 1,000, and I end up doing it as a 1/2 pound of nitrogen per 1,000. So I ended up doing a double rate, which didn't hurt anything, but I only bought 1 bag, so I didn't have a chance to apply it on the side yard, the backyard. So I'm going to try to be a little more careful this time around, and we will see how this spreads out once this is done and I get everything else sprayed out. If it doesn't rain in time, then I will grab the hose and try to water this in, because it does say on the bag that after this is applied, you want to water it in to make sure you get an even distribution across the soil. So I'll make sure that everything kind of gets watered in really good if it doesn't rain. So without further ado, I want to get spreading this down and see what we can do with it. Well, while I was trying to spread this out, apparently the GoPro decided to crap out on me and not record anything. Video file says unable to view. So while I'm still out here, so I measured out the 6 pounds, put in the spreader, ran around. I had it set to a spreader setting of 4 on my Scott's spreader, and right along the backside of my yard, just barely ran out. There's a tiny bit in there. So I was set to a 4. I'm not sure if I hit 100% of everything. I might have missed just a little small swipe. So I'm thinking maybe if I set this to maybe a 3.5 for the rest of the yard, might do pretty good. It is really hard to see it. You can kind of occasionally see some of the granules spreading out pretty far. It's getting maybe about a 5 to 6 foot spread as it throws out. So it's kind of hard to see, so try to keep an eye on it. It's just my visual of it. Maybe you guys can see it a little bit easier. My eyes suck. I'm like a 22,000 in my left eye, and that's uncorrected obviously. But so sometimes a little bit harder for me to see this stuff. So I'm going to bump it down to 3.5 for the rest of the yard, and should be pretty good. Alright, so I'm going to get my final thought on the ProPEAT 1704 fertilizer. So it's been a little over a week. I've had non-stop rain going on to water everything in, a total of maybe about 3 inches of rain. And actually, as of last night, we had another bad storm roll through, and within about the hour and a half of the storms that came through, we got another 1.5 inches of rain. So we've definitely got plenty of rain here in the past week to water all this in. Now looking back there after I mowed everything, do I really see a sort of color response from the ProPEAT fertilizer? Not really. Have I really seen a lot of growth caused by the ProPEAT fertilizer? That wouldn't be up for debate, because I got so much rain and it hasn't exactly been terribly warm, so the grass isn't stressed, plus the rain, so yeah, I'm already going to get a lot of growth anyway. So doing any sort of color response from the ProPEAT fertilizer, I'm not seeing it, because ProPEAT does not have any iron into it. So I'm not going to see any sort of color response with iron as compared to the XGRN that has, I believe, 4% iron, and your Carbon X has 2% iron in it. So with those, you see a little bit more of a darker green color response coming out of those fertilizers as compared to the ProPEAT that does not have any iron to it. So kind of comparing the two, if you want some sort of iron hit to it to get a color response fairly quickly, the Carbon X or the XGRN might be a better way to go. If you're after something like a quick nitrogen hit with a ammonium sulfate, then ProPEAT might be your better bet. Now with the ProPEAT, they say with it being the peat moss based, over time it could acidify the soil. ProPEAT didn't exactly go into detail when I asked them, as far as they said extended use could cause it to acidify. Whether or not that's 6 months, a year, 10 years, I don't know. But all in all, it's an okay fertilizer. Yeah, it didn't blow my socks off, but I think it would do the job that I needed to do. So with that, thanks for watching, and